From the station that's on your side, you're watching Friends at 5.
This has to do with respect for our country and respect for our flag.
The fact that it's a peaceful protest and it's, something that needs to be stood up for, and that's the right way to do it. So I think that definitely has a big part of it.
I know if I saw somebody kneeling during the national anthem, as soon as it was over, they'd probably get knocked out.
We need more people like him. You don't have to agree with him, but he took a peaceful stance. And I think it's great that it's catching fire.
Very different views on a very complicated issue. We begin Friends at 5 today with the ongoing controversy over the national anthem protest in the NFL. Good evening and thanks for joining us for Friends at 5. I'm Darcy Strickland.
And I'm Andrea Mock. Depending on who you ask, it's a story about race or respect or the First Amendment or even the President of the United States.
The ongoing protests by NFL athletes continued yesterday with players linking arms or dropping to their knee during the anthem. It was also a show of solidarity as the league responded to President Trump's call for protesting players to be fired. Their actions have both been praised and criticized. Some call it a peaceful protest for social change, while others say it's disrespectful to the country and those who have fought for it.
Well, President Trump is not backing down in his fight against NFL players who do decide to protest the anthem and take a knee or not stand at all. CBS's Kenneth Craig is outside the league office in New York City with the very latest tonight.
Today, President Trump again criticized players who protest the national anthem. In a series of tweets this morning, the president said it's about respect for our country. But the issue is bringing players together in an unprecedented way.
At the end of the day, we unite as one. Nobody's going to divide us.
On Sunday, every team took part in some kind of protest during the national anthem. Some players kneeled, some stood with locked arms, some just stayed in the locker room until it was over.
They were not going to be disrespectful in the anthem. So they chose not to participate, but at the same time, many of them were not going to accept the words of the president.
The players weren't alone. Owners, including the Jacksonville Jaguars' Shahid Khan and the Washington Redskins' Dan Snyder, joined them on the sidelines during the pregame ceremonies. Over the weekend, NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell issued a statement calling the president's comments divisive and said they demonstrate an unfortunate lack of respect for the NFL.
Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, get that son of a off the field right now?
On Friday, the president said players who protest the national anthem should be fired. He continued to tweet and talk about the protest throughout the weekend. And while some fans booed the players, two anthem singers in Nashville and in Detroit knelt in solidarity. Kenneth Craig, CBS News, New York.
So, how do we get to this point? News 19's Nick Jones has a timeline of the protest.
It all started back in August of 2016 during the NFL preseason. Before the 49ers game against the Packers, Colin Kaepernick stayed on the bench during the national anthem. This all took place after there were several police-involved shootings across the country. Kaepernick was protesting because of his beliefs of racial injustice in the United States. Here's what he had to say then.
There's a lot of things that need to change. Cops are getting paid leave for killing people.
Following in the 2016 season, a handful of NFL players joined Kaepernick in the silent protest by kneeling, sitting, or raising a fist during the national anthem.
Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, get that son of a off the field right now, out, he's fired?
That comment made by President Trump last Friday at a rally in Alabama. On Sunday, teams across the Professional Football League responded during the national anthem with owners linking arms with players, teams kneeling or sitting together, or not appearing on the sidelines at all. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell released the following statement regarding President Trump's comments. The NFL and our players are at our best when we help create a sense of unity in our country and our culture. There is no better example than the amazing response from our clubs and players to the terrible natural disasters we've experienced over the last month. Divisive comments like these demonstrate an unfortunate lack of respect for the NFL, our great game and all of our players, and a failure to understand the overwhelming force for good our clubs and players represent in our communities. There's still one more NFL game tonight between the Cowboys and the Cardinals, where people wait on their reaction during pregame.
That was Nick Jones reporting. The national anthem protest started long before President Trump made his comments this past weekend. Again, social media users have been sharing a post claiming to be a rule in the NFL, and we've even gotten calls into the newsroom about this.
Asking this, and here's the thing. We promised you that we are going to verify social media posts, and we're always going to check them out to make sure they are correct for you. So we looked into this one today. Have you seen the post that claims to be the NFL rules, that claims to say that all players have to stand for the national anthem? Well, we looked into it, and that is not the case. As a matter of fact, the national anthem isn't even mentioned in the book. What it does say, though, is in Article 8, Section 4, it talks about rules for the player's appearance. And that rule says, in part, players are prohibited from wearing, displaying, or otherwise conveying personal messages, either in writing or illustration, unless such a message has been approved in advance by the league office.
The last official word on the topic came from NFL spokesperson Brian McCarthy back in August of 2016. He wrote, "Players are encouraged but not required to stand during the playing of the national anthem."
Well, there's a number of other social media posts, some of them claiming that people just started standing for the national anthem. It's a popular post. It's been shared many times. Evan Kolsoff joins us now to explain the facts and verify.
So as you scroll through social media, perhaps you've seen this post. It claims before 2009, NFL players did not stand for the national anthem. They stayed in the locker room. The custom didn't start until the Department of Defense gave the NFL $5.4 million to stage on-field ceremonies to make the team seem more patriotic. So obviously a lot to unpack there, but it can be boiled down to three questions. Did players stay in the locker room before 2009? Does the Department of Defense pay for on-field ceremonies? And are the two related? So let's dive into the first one. Our first reference here is an article from August 2016. Comcast Sportsnet spoke with NFL spokesperson Brian McCarthy, who did confirm that the practice did not begin until 2009. He said, quote, "Players are encouraged but not required to stand for the anthem." Before 2009, he said it was up to the team's discretion. Some teams did it, some teams didn't. So as for claim number one, the practice wasn't widespread until 2009. We can verify that is true. As for claim number two, is paid patriotism really a thing? For that, we can look to Congress. Senators Jeff Flake and John McCain commissioned this report in 2015. It looked to explore this topic of paid patriotism. They found that the Department of Defense paid the NFL $5.4 million between 2011 and 2014. Meanwhile, the National Guard paid $6.7 million between 2013 and 2015. The report began. In 2013, a roaring crowd cheered as the Atlanta Falcons welcomed 80 National Guard members. Continuing, little did those fans or millions of other Americans know that the National Guard had actually paid for the whole thing. So as for claim number two, that the DoD pays for patriotism displays, that too we can verify. Claim number three is where it gets tricky, though. The congressional report did not look at 2009, and so we don't know if paid patriotism was going on in 2009. For that reason, it's hard to say whether the league's decision was a coincidence or it was related to the paid patriotism.
NFL owners have been critical of President Trump's comments that teams should fire players who do not stand for the national anthem. One of those owners is USC alum Robert McNair. He calls Trump's comments, quoting now, divisive. In a statement, he said, in part, the comments made by the president were divisive and counterproductive to what our country needs right now. I hope the reaction from our players results in positive action for our league, our communities, and our country as a whole to make a positive difference in our society. He continued saying he has never been more proud of his players.
Well, prior to yesterday's game, the Panthers head coach, Ron Rivera, told his team that they need to stick together and stand towards the flag. Defensive end Julius Peppers was the team's sole protester, choosing to stay in the locker room instead during the anthem.
We know what went on this week with the comments that were made by the president, you know, and I felt like he attacked my brothers in the league, so I felt like it was appropriate to stand up with them and send them locker room.
Well, today, Coach Rivera says that he respected how Peppers handled the situation.
Meanwhile, a number of NASCAR team owners have stood with President Trump, taking a firm stance against anthem protests. Racing legend Richard Petty said that he would fire any employee that didn't stand for the anthem. Yesterday, he said anybody that doesn't stand up for that ought to be out of the country, period. And a picture of a 97-year-old World War II veteran showing support for those taking a knee has gone viral. His grandson, Brennan Gilmore, posted a picture on Twitter of the vet kneeling. The caption says, "My grandpa's a 97-year-old World War II vet and Missouri farmer who wanted to join with those who take a knee, saying," quoting now, "those kids have every right to protest." The post has been retweeted more than 112,000 times.
Well, you know we want to get your thoughts and decisions on whether or not to sit out the national anthem. News 19 viewer Pat Harden said, "Really? Why not show you are men by standing up for our flag and our anthem? You are a disgrace to any family member, friend, or neighbor who has fought for you."
Meanwhile, Jonathan Scott says, "I respect the NFL 100 times more. Time for me to show my support and buy more tickets to games. United we stand, divided we fall. Keep up the good work of supporting each other and we will support you." Allison Rowe says she thinks everyone should serve 2 years in the military before playing sports and before you can be a politician. She says people should learn what freedom really is.
I like that idea, Allison. I think that's a good idea. Interesting.
Well, I mean, it would give us a different perspective on what it really means to serve. I don't know if you have to go serve before you do anything else in life, but you have men and women in uniform who see this very differently. There are some who say you're disrespecting the flag, and there are some who say I fought so that you could have the right to kneel.
Well, I know most military families, and I come from a military family, we're very respectful of the flag. It's something that's ingrained in you. You put the flag up, you make sure you have the lighting on the flag. You take the flag down in bad weather. You never let the flag get tattered. You destroy it properly. You know, that's just things that are ingrained to you when you're in the military, and I am from a military family. But what hurts my heart as a military family is seeing Americans turn against each other. When did everybody get so mad, Darcy? Why everybody's so mad at each other? And I hate that. You and I were talking, you know, after 9/11, and obviously it's a horrible time in the country's history, but after 9/11, we all loved each other a lot more. You respected your neighbor. You heard stories of coworkers carrying each other down flights of stairs, and you had the sense of pride and unification in being American, like we won't let others destroy us. And now it feels like we're turning on each other.
We don't have to agree, but we don't have to be hateful.
Yeah.
Just because I don't see kneeling the same way you see kneeling, or doesn't mean we have to be hateful.
Right.
That's the great part of this country. And I actually talked with a viewer today who called, and he said he was a vet, and he was like, freedom of speech, but they're not saying anything. And I'm like, sir, freedom of speech is not just verbal. And he said, oh, I hadn't thought of it that way.
Yeah.
There's lots of ways to express yourself. And so we don't know. We don't know what the right answer is.
Guess what? I'm not the expert, but I do know this. I do know this. If you don't like who's leading the country, make sure you get out and vote in the next time you have a chance to vote. Gotta vote.
And if you like how it's going, then you gotta vote that way too.
Right.
So
if you don't vote and then you want to complain about who's leading the country, you don't get the right to complain.
You don't do that. Nope, not at all. Still ahead today on Friends at 5, patients from Puerto Rico will soon be receiving treatment at hospitals in South Carolina. This is a huge story that cannot be overshadowed by anything else. We'll take a closer look at our friends and family in Puerto Rico after the break.